Good afternoon. Welcome to the January 18 meeting of the Committee of Adjustment. I'm calling the meeting to order as an administrative function. There's a need to consider the appointment of chair and vice chair. At this time, before it's handed over to the committee, I invite nominations to fill the position of chair. And if you can say, Mr. Legault. Have to unmute, I guess.
Oh, hang on a sec. Can you hear me?
I can now, yes.
Okay. I'd like to nominate Pat O'Connor as chair.
Is there any other nominations? Do you second the nominations? You guys have to help me out. Any seconder for that nomination? I guess I see Councillor Rich.
I'll second it.
Any other nominations? Call one more time. Any other nominations for chair? If not, just for the formality, this is a motion to elect Pat O'Connor as chair of the committee. All in favor? Yes, that's carried. And I turn it over to Mr. O'Connor.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Mr. Legault, for having faith in me. I appreciate that very much. It is now the role of the chair to ask for nominations for vice chair. Councillor Rich.
I'd like to nominate Deputy Mayor Matheson.
Deputy Mayor Matheson. Any other nominations for the Deputy Mayor? If not, I have a motion. I'm sorry, Mr. Legault.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Could somebody move that motion, please?
I think John did.
John did, and seconded by, I'm sorry, moved by Councillor Rich and seconded by Mr. Legault, that Deputy Mayor Matheson is appointed as vice chair of this committee. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Well, we're going to have a good year. Let's go. First item is the call of this meeting to order, which has been done by Mr. Posner. At this time, any acknowledgement of any pecuniary interest, either now or the time that it may appear on the agenda. Number 3 is the adoption of minutes. Our last meeting was on December the 15th, 2020.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Before we get to the minutes, maybe you might want to introduce our 2 new members.
Oh, I'm sorry. Of course. Yes. That's very rude of me. I'd like to welcome Councillor Matt Carr. Congratulations for coming to this committee. And also, is it Olivia Barwell? I'm sorry, it's hard for me to see. I'm on a small iPad, but Olivia, welcome. We're honored to have you on the committee as well. And thank you for the reminder. Thank you. Number 3 is the adoption of the minutes. May I have a mover and seconder that we adopt the minutes of December the 15th. That's moved by Deputy Mayor Matheson and seconded by, need a seconder by Councillor Rich. Any discussion about the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. We don't have any additional business. Item number 4. So we do have our additional business rather is item number 4. And our first case is item 4.1. It's a minor variance A-2020-056. Brent Lavallee with the property at 100 Grosvenor Street South in the former municipality of Southampton. Ms. Mugabe.
What happened?
I'm sharing my screen. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to present this application once again. The subject land is situated at the intersection of Grosvenor Street and Morpeth Street in Southampton. This slide shows the front view of the 10-unit apartment dwelling that's on the site. This is the rear yard and the back of the dwelling. The subject land is within a residential neighborhood. Servicing is by municipal water and sewers. and the site is accessed via Grosvenor Street, which is a year-round municipal road. The application was presented to committee on December 15, 2020. The original proposal was to reduce the rear yard setback for the exit stair from 7.5 meters to 4.8 meters, and the exterior side yard for the deck from 6 meters to 1.2 meters. Since then, the building department confirmed that the exit staircase in the rear yard was in fact constructed with a building permit in conformity with the town zoning bylaw. They referred to section 3.35, which states that covered or uncovered steps must maintain a 1 meter setback from all lot lines. As such, the applicant should not be seeking relief for the stair, as a 4.8 meter setback is provided. The purpose of the application is to facilitate a deck expansion. The variance is therefore intended solely for the deck to allow the construction of a deck expansion on unit number 7 in the front of the building. The subject land is designated primary urban communities in the Bruce County official plan and residential in the local official plan. The zoning is residential 4th density, R4. The town has provided comments on this proposal. The comment is that the property was subject to a minor variance in 2014, which established setbacks, parking, and number of dwelling units as they currently exist. They have no objection, provided there is no increase in the number of units and no alteration to the site works, number of parking spaces, or a decrease in landscaped open space, except for that required to accommodate the deck. No issues have been raised by any of the departments or commenting agencies. We have not received any new comments since the public meeting. With respect to the 4 tests of a minor variance, test number 1, the official plan policy permits residential uses on the subject property. The variance maintains the intent and purpose of the official plan. With respect to test number 2, does the variance maintain the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw? The application indicates that the building was constructed in 1900. The deficiency relating to the exterior side yard is a reflection of what's currently on the site. The variance does not undermine the intent and spirit of the zoning bylaw. With respect to test number 3, is the variance requested desirable for the appropriate and orderly development and use of the lands and buildings? Decks expand living spaces to include functional space where residents can gather for outdoor enjoyment. They can also add aesthetic appeal to the exterior of buildings and can also serve as a secondary access to a unit. For these reasons, the application is desirable for the landowner. It is not expected that proposed deck will have negative effects on the functionality of the site. With respect to test number 4, is the variance minor in nature? Does it have an impact on surrounding property owners, on the environment, or on municipal functions? It is not expected that permitting the variance will have any adverse impact on the ability of adjacent property owners to use their property for permitted uses. There is also no impact to municipal functions or to the environment. The proposal is minor in nature. A summary, just to recap, this minor variance is requested to facilitate the construction of a deck. The application is consistent with the provincial policy statement. It upholds the objectives of the Saugeen Shores official plan and represents good land use planning. The application satisfies the 4 tests of a minor variance. We are recommending approval subject to the conditions on the decision sheet. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Mugabe. Does the applicant Brent Lavely or his agent, Mr. Sakunovich, wish to address the committee?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I do. I don't know if you guys are hearing me or not.
I can hear you.
Okay. I just want to point out that all your criteria is met with the variance that's required for this project, and I can't see that the committee would not approve deck subject to what we have submitted. There were some issues in the last meeting regarding the, i.e., that we went ahead and we built this stair in the back of the unit, and the stair really was never an issue when we talked about this originally. The stair was only talked about once we applied for the severance application. I just want to point out as well that we applied for this deck back in April, and it was presented to us that there would be no issues with the deck back in April. And not only that, but we asked the second time back in May, and there was no issues at that time. So we're a little concerned that we're getting all this setback from the committee regarding, we haven't done anything wrong. We just want to get this thing built. The owner has said that he would provide a deck that would be pleasing to the neighbors. It would be covered with aluminum siding. The soffits would be covered with aluminum siding. The poster would be covered with aluminum siding. This is going to be an attractive build to the building. And I just want to say that we're trying to do something that's going to improve the value, and the owner has certainly done that to improve the value of the units and essentially the building itself. So that's my comment on it. So if you have any questions other than that, I'd be happy to answer those.
I'm looking at this is the proposal site plan. This deck is going to be on the unit that is closest to Morpeth Street?
That's correct.
Okay, so because I was just confused because on the drawing it has north actually going south.
Okay, that may be a problem with the way we drew it up. I apologize for that.
That's fine, but I think we understand this location then. Committee, any comments or questions? Deputy Mayor Matheson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, sorry, Mr. Chair, and through you. As far as the rear stairs were concerned, the reason it became a problem was because all the information was not presented at the last meeting. We did not know if the building permit had been issued. That has been clarified, and as Ms. Mugabe has said, it is not an issue. So what is now before this committee is the issue of the new deck on the southwest corner of the building. Am I correct there, Mr. LaValle?
Yes, you are correct.
Okay, and as long as our building inspector has okayed it, I believe I'm good with this, so I'd move forward with this new plan now that all the issues have been cleared up.
Yeah, I'm just trying to take the look of the building from a square box to something that a little more architecturally pleasing. Even putting shutters in the building made a world of difference. People like last year stopping by to shake my hand for thanking me for doing something.
Yeah, it's an old building in town. You've done a good job.
We're doing our best.
Any other comments? Sorry.
We've actually cut we made it really, really efficient. We've cut the hydro bill back from 26,000 a year down to 6,000.
Oh, that's good.
So we've really put a lot of LED lights and a lot of, even the fire alarms are inspected and up to date and everything's gone through. Like it's not, so we're trying.
Any other comments or questions from the committee? If not, may I have a motion to approve this application subject to the conditions on the condition sheet? Moved by Deputy Mayor Matheson and seconded by Councillor Rich. All in favor? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Just all the motion's carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Our next item is item 5.2. This is a minor variance A-2020-061 by LBV Corporation. And this would be the municipal address of 31 George Street in the former Saugeen Township. Ms. Mugabe.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll share my screen once again. This is a photograph of the site. There is a dwelling and an attached garage with an accessory structure in the rear yard. This is another photograph of the site, just shows the front yard and the front of the dwelling. The property is surrounded by other residential land uses. Servicing is by way of municipal water and a septic system. George Street is a year-round municipal road. The purpose of the application is to construct a garage addition to be used for parking and storage. The application proposes to reduce the front yard setback from 6 meters to 3.5 meters. The site is designated primary urban communities in the Bruce County official plan and shoreline residential in the Saugeen Shores official plan. The zoning is residential first density, R1-2. The town has submitted comments with respect to this proposal. The comment is that typically they do not support front yard setbacks. They do not support front yard reductions in these areas for setbacks less than 4 meters. There appears to be adequate space on the site to meet parking standards. They requested that we ensure that parking can be provided with all proposed site alterations. The applicant has advised that they'll be providing 3 parking spaces after the site alterations. The Conservation Authority requires that the applicant contact them for a building permit. We did not receive any comments from members of the public. With respect to the 4 tests of a minor variance, test number 1, does the variance maintain the intent and purpose of the official plan? A dwelling and accessory use such as a garage are permitted uses on the site. The application meets the intent and purpose of the official plans. Test number 2, does the variance maintain the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw? Relief is required to permit a reduced front yard setback of 3.35 meters. The zoning bylaw's minimum requirement of 6 meters is to ensure that development along the road from property to property maintains a consistent orderly setback from the road allowance. The variance does not undermine the intent of the zoning bylaw. With respect to test number 3, the proposed garage addition is desirable from the landowner's perspective in that additional space will be created for parking and storage, which is better utilization of the subject lands. Between J Street and Snyder Street, along this stretch of George Street, there is not a consistent front yard pattern. Front yards provide a space between the street, which is public space, and the building to protect people's privacy. The dwelling on the property meets the front yard setback requirement. Sufficient front yard setback exists to allow for typical front yard uses. With respect to test number 4, is the variance minor in nature? Does it impact on surrounding properties, the environment, or municipal functions? It is not expected that permitting the variance will have any impact on the character of the area or impact the ability of adjacent property owners to use their property for permitted uses. There are no adverse impacts to the environment or to municipal functions. The application meets the 4 tests of a minor variance. In summary, this minor variance is requested to facilitate the construction of a garage addition. The application is consistent with the provincial policy statement, upholds the objectives of the Saugeen Shores official plan, and represents good land use planning. The application satisfies the 4 tests of a minor variance. We are recommending approval subject to the conditions on the decision sheet. That concludes my presentation.
Does the applicant wish to address the committee? Mr. Schnarr? No.
It's LBV.
No. Oh, LBV, sorry. Roland, LBV Corporation, I'm sorry. They present? I guess not. Okay. I don't believe there's any public comment on the screen here, so we can move on to the committee. Committee, any questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Matheson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this is a good use. My question is, can we pass this without express confirmation from the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority? Or do we have to wait for that?
Mr. Posner?
Yeah, my answer is you don't have to wait. Certainly they advise on committee of adjustment applications, but they have an authority on their own right. So in strict terms, they have to address both the town requirements and the SVCA requirements. In my view, it's pretty low risk that it is in the screening area and that they would have to make any changes. You're evaluating whether the front yard setback reduction is appropriate.
But if we say yes and then Saugeen Valley comes back and says no, there has to be some changes, is that an issue? You're muted.
Jay, you're muted.
It would only be an issue if the change would necessitate a further front yard setback reduction from whatever you grant. Or if they necessitates a variance on another part of the property. In my view, I think, again, that's very low risk given the circumstance.
Any other questions? Would you please confirm the municipal address of this property?
Yes, certainly.
George.
Hello.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm just looking up the address.
Yes, it's 31. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, hi, it's Roland Lajam here. I'm sorry, I must have been on mute or I wasn't on the screen. The other applicants were on the screen there.
Okay.
It's 31 George Street is the municipal address.
Okay, so I'm confirming this is 5.2. Sir, do you
Yes,
wish?
it is. Yeah, you
Yes.
were, the applicants that were on there, I think were on for 5.1.
That's right, yes. Do you have any comments about this application, sir?
No, well, actually, a very short comments. Yeah, my name is Roland Lajam and I'm the owner of LBV Corp. We actually purchased this property back in 2002, primarily as an investment, and as a cottage. We like the area so much that we've now decided to make this our permanent residence. We're seeking this minor variance in order to build a very much needed garage extension and storage because it's a bungalow without a basement. So as a primary residence, you can appreciate the additional square footage we're looking for. I don't think there's any impact. And with regards to the question on the SVCA, there was a report from the Saugeen Conservation Area. And I think, Barbara, if you would like to speak with regards to that.
The report, you mean the comments that were submitted by the Conservation Authority?
Yes, is that what you were asking about before?
I believe so, yes. So they would require for you to contact them so that you can talk about a building permit from the Conservation Authority. And that's in addition to the building permit from the town. So they're two separate, yes.
Correct. Now, what I think that's regarding is there is a culvert down the side of the property. If you look at the building lot, the side property is Schneider, and there's a culvert that goes down the side there, a bit of a frog haven for all the kids. They love to come and visit the frogs. That might be what they're talking about. This expansion or this garage extension actually does not impact that at all. And with regards to sharing the plans with them, there should not be any problem. We'd be pleased to, obviously.
Mr. Pearson, do you wish to address? I guess not.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, okay, that's good. Committee members, questions, comments? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve this application subject to the conditions on the condition sheet. Mr. Legault has moved the motion and seconded by Ms. Kuntz. Any discussion? If not, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We should go back to 5.1. Sorry.
5.1, yeah, sorry.
Caught that earlier.
Yeah. Item number 5.1 is a minor variance, A-2020-058. James and Catherine Schnarr of 266 Perkins Streets in Southampton, former town of Southampton. Ms. Mugabe, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just share my screen here. Oops, I beg your pardon. So there's presently a cottage and 2 sheds located on the Schnarr property. And this is the front of the cottage. This is one of the 2 sheds, and this is the west side of the property. The cottage and the 2 sheds will be demolished to make way for redevelopment of the site. The site is surrounded by other residential land uses. Servicing is by way of municipal water and septic system. Perkins Street is a year-round municipal road. The purpose of the application is to facilitate construction of a replacement dwelling with a detached garage. Although the applicant is seeking relief for the garage, staff have determined that relief is not required for the garage based on section 3.16 of the zoning bylaw. So the garage is just slightly over 22 square meters in size and will be set back 1.87 meters from the lot line. Therefore, it meets the minimum requirement, which is 1.5 meters. The minor variance application should therefore only address the rear yard relief for the dwelling. And in this regard, the application is seeking to reduce the rear yard setback for the dwelling from 7.5 to 3.05 meters. The property is designated primary urban communities in the Bruce County official plan and residential in the local official plan. The zoning is residential first density R1. The town has submitted comments. Firstly, they were looking for clarification on the rear yard setback as it's unclear on the site plan. And we gave the information that it's a 3.05 meter setback. They commented that it's an area known for drainage problems, that stormwater management and grading drainage will need to be assessed at the building permit stage. There were no adverse comments received from any of the commenting agencies. The Conservation Authority finds the application acceptable, and the historic Saugeen Métis has no objection. We did not receive any comments from members of the public. With respect to the 4 tests of a minor variance, test number 1, does the variance maintain the intent and purpose of the official plan? The variance does maintain the intent and purpose of the official plan. A dwelling is a permitted use. With respect to test number 2, does the variance maintain the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw? The requirement for a rear yard setback is so that each dwelling will have the same setbacks, thereby ensuring uniform appearance in the neighborhood. Further, spacing distance between different land uses prevents buildings from crowding adjacent structures, which reduces potential conflict with neighbors. The rear yard setbacks ensure some usable backyard, thereby providing a green corridor within a block. The intent of the setback is to ensure adequate drainage and access to the building. The proposed backyard space is consistent with the yard depth of the existing cottage. The variance maintains the intent and spirit of the zoning bylaw. With respect to test number 3, is the variance requested desirable for the appropriate and orderly development and use of the lands and buildings? The applicant will build a more functional modern dwelling, therefore the application is desirable. With respect to test number 4, is the variance minor in nature? It is not expected that the application will have any impact on surrounding property owners, the environment, and municipal functions. The variance is minor in nature. As a summary, this minor variance is requested to facilitate the construction of a replacement dwelling and a detached garage. The application is consistent with the provincial policy statement. It upholds the objectives of the Saugeen Shores official plan and represents good land use planning. The application satisfies the 4 tests of a minor variance. We are recommending approval subject to the conditions on the decision sheet. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Mugabe. Mr. and Mrs. Schnarr, do you wish to address the community, or the committee, rather? Your microphone's off, sir.
There we go. Congratulations to your reappointment,
Thank you.
Mr. O'Connor. My wife and I are here, and we have also invited our contractor and builder to join us, Mr. Sever, with his partner there. We just wanted to come and support the fact that we are interested in doing this rebuild and with a modern building. And we have talked to our neighbors and there's no problems. And we just wanted to be here to answer any questions you might have with regard to the site and so on.
Thank you, sir. Does your builder, Paul, do you wish to address the committee?
We'd like to replace the rundown, a better looking, more energy efficient than the dilapidated cottage and sheds. I think it's improved the streetscape quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. Sir, how do you pronounce your last name?
Sever.
Sever, thank you. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, then we'll move on to committee. Committee, any questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Matheson.
Thank you. I think this is a great plan. It's one of the last old cottages, original cottages down that section of town, and replacing it with a modern looking building will be just add to the area. So I approve this one, or will be approving it.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions? If not, may I have a motion to adopt this application or approve this application subject to the conditions on the condition sheet? Ms. Kuntz is moving it, seconded by Mr. Legault. Any discussion? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question? Does this mean we move on to permit? We just apply for a permit now? Is that the next step for us?
Mr. Posner?
I was going to say maybe Barbara can answer this. I shouldn't be jumping in. It's file.
Yes, so yes, through you, Mr. Chair. So you have to meet the conditions that are attached to the decision sheet. And yes, you will be able to apply for a building permit through the town.
Thank you. Thank you, committee.
Thank you. Our next item is 5.3. This is minor variance A-2020-065. Mr. Joseph Spots at 79 First Street in the former town of Southampton. Ms. Mugabe.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So the sports property is vacant, save and except for the shed located to the right. I understand the dwelling on the site was recently demolished. It's in a residential neighborhood and servicing is by way of municipal water and sewers. First Street is a year-round municipal road. The purpose of the application is to facilitate construction of a replacement dwelling. Relief is requested to reduce the exterior side yard setback to the municipal lane from 4.5 meters to 1.3 meters. The town has submitted comments in regards to this proposal. They mentioned that 2 parking spaces are required. There's some concern with stormwater management and grading drainage, that this will be assessed at the building permit stage. Because the lane is being used, sight lines will need to be maintained to ensure safe ingress and egress of existing users. With respect to public comments, we received several comments. The first of them came from Michael Kennedy of 87 First Street in Southampton, and he objects to the proposal. He mentions that cars regularly drive up and down the lane, that the laneway is like a public road. A house should not be located 1.3 meters from cars driving up and down the laneway. The rest of the comments were actually in support of the proposal. With respect to Mr. Kennedy's comments, I would say that the laneway is used for the adjoining 4 property owners, so there isn't a huge volume of traffic, and I understand from the applicant that the 4 property owners maintain the laneway during the winter. They have not raised any objections to the proposed development. With respect to the 4 tests of a minor variance, the subject property is designated residential in the Saugeen Shores official plan. The property is also within special policy area 2. The residential use is permitted on the property. That meets test number 1. With respect to test number 2, does the variance maintain the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw? The current dwelling on the property has a setback of 1.3 meters from the lane, whereas 4.5 meters is required. The application proposes to locate the dwelling in the same general location as the previous dwelling. As the property is adjacent to a lane and not a year-round municipal road, it is not expected that the reduced setback will significantly impact sight lines or the functioning of the lane. As the shed on the site exists without a primary use, we recommend a condition of approval that construction of the dwelling be started within 1 year of the decision, and that failure to do so will require removal of the shed from the site. The variance maintains the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. With respect to the 3rd test, is the variance requested desirable for the appropriate orderly development and use of the lands and buildings? The landowner will build a modern dwelling on the site, which is desirable for the subject land. The variance represents an appropriate form of development for the use of the land. With respect to test number 4, is the variance minor in nature? The proposed development is not expected to have any adverse impact on the surrounding property owners, the environment, or municipal functions. This minor variance is requested to facilitate the construction of a replacement dwelling. The application is consistent with the provincial policy statement. It upholds the objectives of the Saugeen Shores official plan, and it represents good land use planning. The application satisfies the 4 tests of a minor variance. We recommend approval subject to the conditions on the decision sheet. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Ms. McGovey. Mr. Spots, do you wish to address the committee?
Are we okay now?
Yes, please go ahead, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. I appreciate everybody taking a look at this. The main concern with the minor variance, of course, is the laneway. And it's not new to me. I've owned this property for over 30 years. And therefore, one of the comments made is about the busyness of the laneway. When really there's only 4 people on the laneway. It is not significant whatsoever. But what this is really for is to accommodate the building of a 1,300 square foot brand new home with quality homes. And the plan is to do that as soon as possible so that we can start to look at our retirement in Southampton. Certain, other than that, the neighborhood, the neighbors are all in favor of it. What we had there before, unfortunately, you can't see, was probably one of the smallest, most rundown properties on the street because it had been there so long. But certainly, if there are any questions or concerns, I'm more than prepared to deal with them now.
Thank you, sir. Committee, any questions or comments? Seeing none, may I have a motion to move that we approve this application subject to the conditions on the condition sheet. Deputy Mayor Matheson, seconded by Councillor Rich. Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. All right. Our next item is item 5.4. This is a minor variance A-2020-072. Highbury Farm with municipal address of 5639 Highway 21. Ms. Mugabe.
It's actually Mr. Kingsbury, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Kingsbury, if you make the presentation.
He's on mute.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of committee. The application, as you mentioned, is for Highbury Farm on Highway 21 between Southampton and Port Elgin. The application proposes to expand the retail footprint of Highbury Farms from its current state, which is 103 square meters, to 330 square meters. Currently, the zoning bylaw restricts farm sales outlets to 95 square meters. And the application is also seeking relief of the interior side yard width provision from 20 meters to 5.3 meters. And if approved, the variance would facilitate the construction of an addition to the front of the existing structure to allow for more retail space. In terms of surrounding uses, it's primarily agricultural and commercial. The lands, I'll note, are designated agricultural in the county official plans and zoned agriculture in the town zoning bylaw. Just a minor modification to the slide deck here. The lands are serviced by municipal water, and they're not unserviced as it states in the slide deck. So here's a picture of what's being proposed. From what I understand from the applicant and the applicant's contractor, Derek Seaman, who are both on the call and can clarify if needed, a portion of the existing structure is to be removed and a new structure is to be added to the front. So they're taking some away and then adding some to what was there. So it'll extend by about 14 meters from what's currently there. But in total, it's 18 meters by 13.72. And another note just on in regards to the property line, the applicant has obtained the property, some property from the MTO, I understand, to allow for a greater setback. So it's actually 29 meters from the front property line, which is probably showing slightly different than what's showing on the GIS map. And here's a picture of the existing structure. So you can see in the snow there, a red post sticking out of the snow. That's the side yard, the side boundary to the property. And there's an overhead view of the property as well. So in terms of consultation with our agency partners, we did receive comments from the town, essentially stating that ensure that MTO concerns are appropriately addressed and considered. We did not hear back from the MTO as of the deadline for this report. So I will state that although we don't know specifically what the MTO's requirements are in regard to this application, the applicant, regardless of the minor variance process, will still be required to adhere to the MTO regulations, if any. And there were no other issues or objections raised by other agencies, including the SVCA. No public comments were received. And in terms of the 4 tests of the minor variance, I'll go through them here one by one. In terms of the official plan, as I mentioned, is designated agricultural, and the Bruce County official plan, the lands are outside of the settlement area, so there's no local official plan designation. The agricultural designation permits retail stands for the sale of agricultural products produced on the farm upon which the retail stand sits, which is the case with this proposal. And I'll also note the proposed structure is a small-scale farm-related commercial operation that contributes to the viability of Bruce County's agricultural system. And with that, I would suggest that the application conforms to the official plan and maintains its intent and purpose. Second test, does the variance maintain the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw? So the zoning bylaw implements the objectives of the official plan by outlining the criteria for the proper function of the site. The applicant's requesting a reduction in the side yard width provision from 20 to 5.43 meters, and to increase the floor area from its current state of 103 to 330 square meters. The intent of this additional space, I'll note, is to allow for more retail floor area to safely accommodate customers, given the context of social distancing that we live in now. So I'll note that the property is large relative to the proposed building footprint upon which it's located, and it's located as close to the highway as possible, and that the agricultural function of the area is not expected to be impacted by the addition to the existing building. I'd suggest that the variance maintains the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. The third test is the application desirable for the appropriate development of the land, building, or structure? And as mentioned, the variance will provide the owners with the ability to expand their farm sales outlet and will provide customers with more space within the store. The additional space will prevent the owners to operate their business more efficiently and safely in light of recent social distancing regulations. And finally, is the application minor? In terms of impacts on surrounding owners, the environment, and municipal functions, it's not expected that the proposed addition will have any negative impacts or adverse impacts on those functions. And I would suggest that the application meets the 4th test, and it is in fact minor. So just as a recap, the variance is requested to facilitate the construction of an addition to the existing farm sales outlet structure. The application, in my opinion, is consistent with the provincial policy statement and upholds the objectives of the county official plan and represents good land use planning. The application satisfies the 4 tests. As such, I recommend approval of the proposed variance subject to the conditions on the decision sheet.
Thank you, Mr. Kingsbury. Mr. Charbonneau, would you wish to address the committee?
Well, Mr. Chair, I'll let Derek Seaman represent me. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Seaman.
Yeah, I think Daniel did a great job in explaining it. They're just trying to provide a little more room for their existing client base. Last year, they had a temporary tent there to accommodate that, but this will be a more permanent solution to just have a better experience for their shoppers.
Thank you. Committee, any questions, comments? Mr. Legault.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, Derek, is there any impact to the trail just north of the property?
No, we don't have any plans. The trail is a little further over there, but no, we don't plan on changing any of the access to the property. So no, there should not be any impact on that.
Thank you.
Ms. Kuntz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this is a project we should, I am personally in favor of. I think it would be an excellent idea to have more retail space at Highbury Farms. Really, I think it's an excellent idea, and I will be supporting it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Matheson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And through you, I wonder if in future, the overhead view that we have of Highbury Farms there, if we would be able to overlay what it is that they want to put on there. So if we take the two pictures, the original and then overlay the proposed development, just so that we have a better idea of size. I support this fully, but just being able to see the actual placement of it on the property would be very helpful.
Thank you. If there's no more, Councillor Rich, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I'm totally in support of the project. I don't see it as causing any issues, but I have a question for you, Daniel. Were there any challenges that you had associated with this? I think a lot of times when I look at files, maybe I just see them through a specific lens, and I think it's great. Just because of the applicant and his status in the town, I think that it's important that we make sure that we don't leave anything unturned. So I just want to throw that out to you. Did you have any challenges associated with this that it could be improperly interpreted?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no challenges that I can think of. The applicant did provide some information in terms of the front yard, the distance to the front property line, which was helpful in explaining the lot fabric as it exists now. That's somewhat different than what's currently presented on the county mapping system. Aside from that, I can't think of a particular challenge different from any other application.
Perfect. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. May I have a motion to adopt this application? Moved by Councillor Rich and seconded by Mr. Legault, that we approve this application subject to the conditions on the condition sheet. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Our next meeting date will be Tuesday, February the 16th, 2021, presumably the same by Zoom. And may I have a motion to adjourn, please? One moment, Mr. Posner.
No, I didn't want to have this on the agenda. It was providing the last opportunity to inform this committee that the minor variance on North Shore Road that was by Melissa Berner and Jesse Ward, they appealed that to the LPAT. I'm just informing committee you don't have to do anything because once it has been appealed, it is turned over to the LPAT for their it's in their jurisdiction. So I'm just informing committee.
Thank you. Moved by Ms. Kuntz, or to move, go ahead.
Sorry, thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you. Could you just repeat which address that was, Mr. Posner?
I don't have the address off the top of my head. You caught me off guard there. It is the application where the height of the accessory structure was being considered, and the neighbors attended to object and provide their information, and the committee refused approval.
Okay, that was on North Shore Road there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Southampton. Okay, I thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Certainly. Any other questions or comments? If not, may I have a motion to adjourn, please? Moved by Deputy Mayor Matheson, seconded by Ms. Kuntz. All in favor? That is